We can't talk about the history of American wool without mentioning the Rambouillet breed. And that's exactly what the Helles are growing up here in Dillon, Montana. 10,000 head of Rambouillet, over 100,000 combined acres of private and national forest land.
It's kind of like some of the fine wines and cheeses that come from certain areas. This area of Montana and the Intermountain West is just uniquely qualified to produce some of the most amazing wools in the world.
Land of the biggest sky and base for an American grown and sewn wool clothing brand, Duckworth. They're a company who take pride in delivering source-verified products from sheep to shelf, founded by John Helle. These guys have been doing it for 5 generations. It's almost 100 years in the same family.
My dad and my uncle are partners on the ranch. Me and my brother Weston are joining in.
We all have to work together to help agriculture tell the story. We serve a vital purpose in society. We've lost the trust of our consumer, and that's crazy because we in agriculture are not that way. And we're very committed to doing it in a very sustainable and environmentally friendly way.
So they invited us to their annual shear and shred at the Helle family ranch. Hey y'all, I'm Katie, and from a young age, I fell in love with agriculture, shearing to be specific. Because of agriculture, our ancestors were able to focus on expansion.
They didn't have time to raise their own livestock.
But with the creation of synthetic fibers and the average person being so far removed from the farms.
Generations ago, everybody had somebody in agriculture. Now, there's millions of people out there that don't have any connection to agriculture.
Our once sustainable way of life is being forgotten in lore. Now I'm on the hunt for how fiber has survived in different cultures. Let me take you back to our roots. Let's rediscover fiber country. It is 65 right now, and we're headed up to Montana, where all the temperatures are going to be in the teens or 20s or even lower. Luckily, Duckworth did send us some gear, and hopefully it's actually going to keep these Texas girls warm, because my blood may be too thin for shearing up north. So here we are in Bozeman, Montana. We finally made it. The flight was not that bad.
No, it was actually pretty short, pretty good.
But I will say that the temperature change is extreme. We went from 65 and muggy to snow on the ground as the plane is coming in. But I am glad to have our Duckworth gear. I mean, I put it on as we were leaving the plane, and I am sweating.
It's toasty in the airport. You ready to get outside?
I am ready. I think that the ride's already here, so we probably should get booking. We spent our one night in Bozeman at the Lark, which provided rich culture and an American wool blanket to keep us warm. We didn't have much daylight to explore downtown, but we did stumble upon a shop selling some very familiar items. I think it was then that it really clicked how important this ranch was to the community.
So I'm Evan Helle, a 4th generation sheep rancher. I also manage a lot of the production for Duckworth. I pretty much see everything from raw fiber all the way to finished fabric. My great-great-grandpa settled here in Dillon, Montana, early 1900s. He actually passed away unexpectedly, and his 2 kids, 13 years old and maybe 11 years old, they had to take care of the family. So what they did is they sold the family car and they bought a bunch of sheep. Back then there were a lot of community herds. People would have, a dozen sheep or 100 sheep or 1,000 sheep, and they would all get together and they'd put them all in the same band and they'd hire a sheep herder. That was allowed people with smaller herds to participate in a commercial type operation. There's so many other businesses that we work with in town and across Bozeman as well. All the equipment that we buy, all the supplies that we need. It really does take a village to keep these businesses going, and we all depend on each other. So, everything's about community in the end.
So we've really enjoyed our time in Bozeman. We've had a ton of fun here, but we're ready to get out to the mountains and see what Montana sheep is all about. Our drive to the ranch was every bit of an hour and a half through gorgeous mountains. And by the time we arrived, shearing was at full tilt. The shed buzzed with busy bodies, all working in sync for a common goal. The shepherds gently herd the sheep through the chutes, while the shearers are concentrated on every single blow, focused on forming the perfect fleece for the Rouseys to gather and toss. Once the fleece is properly skirted, a sample is taken and then ran through an analyzer to gather all of the qualities of each individual fleece. I'll explain more about this later, but for now, the guys are on a smoko, so let's check out how the chute system works. The system they use to move the sheep from holding pens to the shearing floor is pretty standard in any operation. As you'll notice here, they used a curved design to ease the sheep instead of trying to make a hard 90-degree turn. And then the sheep will be herded up through this slight incline. These walls are built up to about my hip height, which is perfect height for the sheep to almost have blinders and not be distracted or stressed by all the movement that's happening outside of this one little alleyway in the shearing barn. And they'll end up at one of these shearing drop chutes, where a shearer is now able to handle that animal in a very low stress environment. A barn never stays silent for long, so before we know it, the chutes are full and it's time for me to get some shearing in. Once the fleece is removed from the animal, it's thrown onto the skirting table. They'll remove all of the dirty fleece and just keep the clean, good stuff in the center. The dirty stuff gets thrown into a bag and is also utilized, but it's just not as high quality as the stuff in the middle that doesn't have as much vegetable matter or staining on it. It is then moved to a scale where they weigh it. Everything that's coming off of this is a top quality fleece, and they've done that through selecting which sheep they keep to breed and which ones just aren't going to make that fiber cut. They're able to track and make these selections with the help of technology called electric identification tags, or EID tags. Each animal has a unique number for them, and they're able to correlate the traits that that animal has and see whether it meets their selection criteria. After that, they're able to separate it based off of the qualities. For example, this bale right here is AAA. That's their best stuff that you can wear against your skin. So think base layers or the t-shirts. Anything labeled with the AAAL is their high quality lamb products. The sacks labeled AA, that's something that you'd see more in outerwear. And then when we get down to the single A, we're still talking about some high quality wool, but they're more likely to use that for socks. In ranch life, you can't afford to waste anything, and the same goes for here at Duckworth. That's where they keep their bellies and turn all of this stuff into usable product.
And you know, I think that's part of what makes Duckworth so popular is people have just been wearing polyester clothing. They have no idea where it comes from. And now people are kind of taking a step back and asking questions. We're able to be like, hey, look, here's some sheep grazing on some grass. They're growing wool. And then we shear the wool off. That real organic type clothing resonates with people nowadays. It's kind of a connection to that old past. And wool is nature's technical fiber. It's been evolving for over 9,000 years. It does very good moisture management and heat management. And so everybody's been trying to invent the latest fabric with all these chemicals and stuff, and still wool just blows it out of the water.
Shearing here at the Duckworth operation is different than anything I get to experience in Texas. The sheep here are all very consistent, very good body condition, and watching the fleece fall off of them and just expose this snow white sheep is awesome. A lot of times the sheep that I'm exposed to are very dirty, but we're just rolling through. So with that fine wool, you also get a heavy lanolin production. And that lanolin tends to make that skin almost thin like butter. So the new challenge here is just making sure that I can follow every curve perfectly so that I don't snag anything. I mean, these sheep are so beautiful, so fine. I feel bad for even maybe messing up some of their cuts. Just those few second cuts, I see the wasted potential in it because this stuff is phenomenal. When we talk about fine wools, we really can't leave out the lanolin. And high production in fine wool sheep, it makes the skin kind of soft. Unfortunately, we've got to talk about nicks. Along with the development of wool came the increase in the production of their natural oil, lanolin. This is significant not only because it provides a hygienic environment in the wool, but it also works as a natural antiseptic for any small injuries that the animal may incur. Now, small nicks like this one on our side, we don't have to worry about it. And that's because the magic of lanolin. But that's not the only magical part. Under full wool, sheep's skin becomes very thin, so once the wool is removed, it actually takes 24 hours for the skin to regain its full thickness. During that time, lanolin spreads over the body and hardens into a crust, essentially weatherproofing the animal. After the first 3 days post-shearing, the animal is completely weatherproofed with thick skin and a full lanolin crust, and can even survive cold, wet weather. But in case of any bad weather, these guys are actually stored in the shed, as they should be. Compared to livestock, human beings are weak. If you were to strip all of this off of me, right down to my bare skin, I would freeze in no time, especially with my Texas blood. But the animals out here are designed for this rugged environment.
So the first sheep to ever come to Montana, before Montana was a state, was actually in this same valley we're in now. 150 years ago, there were some Rambouillet sheep over in Oregon. And there was a guy, he actually got like 3,000 sheep and trailed them from the Dalles, Oregon, all the way here to Montana. Actually landed in Carter Creek, which is right here in our backyard. And he lived in this valley and ran sheep on these hills you can see up here. So, like, sheep were destined to be in this valley. It's great sheep country.
Though Rambouillet are definitely a cornerstone of American sheep history, the breed was not created here. In fact, their ancestors can be traced back to the Moorish people that moved into the Spanish country and brought sheep with them, developing eventually the coveted Merino breed. The Spanish Merino were a sense of pride for them, but when they hit a hard time in the 1700s, they struck a deal with France, allowing some of their genetics to help develop the French sheep into what nowadays is known as the Rambouillet. The Rambouillet breed is a dual-purpose breed, which means they're useful in both meat production and wool production, and really makes them an essential part of a sustainable life out here in the mountains.
He was raising that herd and providing meat and wool to the mining towns. All those miners were busy mining all day. They didn't have time to raise their own livestock.
I've come out to the pasture to see the animals that were shorn yesterday and investigate for any signs of cold stress. Although these sheep aren't terrified of humans, they still don't want to be around me, so it's kind of difficult to get close to them in a pasture. But as I look around for signs of cold stress, I'm really not seeing any. I haven't seen any hunched over, shivering. In fact, I see most people chilling out here. And walking away from me. Although these sheep are obviously heavily domesticated, they live about as wild of a life as it can get, drinking from some of the cleanest springs formed from melting snow from the top of the mountains, and foraging the natural grasses that are available in the pastures out here. Do you have to provide water for them, or can they naturally source all of their water?
We've got springs and some water tanks up there, but when they're eating grass here in the snow, they're sourcing enough water just out of the
snow? The man I'm questioning is Mr. John Helle himself. He's certainly one of the busiest bodies here on the ranch, and just to track him down, I had to go through the extreme lengths of a four-wheeler and some tracks. John was on the hunt for a guardian dog he hadn't seen, but I was enjoying being 3 deep at full speed. It was on high ground that we found the herd and their guardians. Livestock guardian dogs are essential to an operation like this. Sheep are very vulnerable animals, and with no protection at all, they're left just to any predation that's out here. And in Montana, that means grizzly bears and wolves. These dogs work hard day and night to protect their herd. Now, these guys may not stand a chance against a grizzly bear, but hopefully their barks are enough to alarm them and send them in a different direction.
But when we do have a problem grizzly bear, which is actually really rare, we call the fish and game. First thing we do is move. So we'll move away and get out of that bear's zone, and then we can kind of move around it. And usually that's the best case scenario that works.
But the wildlife are not the only trials in this rugged landscape.
3 months of the year we're up on the national forest. It's the same as what the elk and the deer follow the same migrations we do. We summer in the mountains and we winter in the valleys.
You can even see, just like the elk or the bighorn sheep would, they've designed their own trail right through the snow and the ice to this beautiful fresh water stream.
We follow the snow up and then the snow chases us back down.
But how are they eating under all of this snow and ice?
Sheep will paw. You can see where they've pawed into here. Some of it even has a little green tint to it.
Oh yes, right here.
Yeah. So there's some nice green in there, and if the weather's nice to us, we can do a pretty good job just letting them do it on their own. But if it gets like this, we got to help them out a little bit.
I think it's outstanding to be in a pasture where I'm cold, but the animals that were just shorn show no signs of cold stress. And I believe one of the key factors of that is this supplemental feed.
That's one thing that a lot of people don't really realize is, in agriculture, it doesn't matter what, the animals need to be fed. So they either need to be on good green grass or you need to go out and feed them.
Running an operation like this takes a lot of variation. This stack here is all of their pasture grasses. And this monstrous stack is their alfalfa. Even though it looks kind of yellow and dry on the outside from the sun, when you take a closer look at this stuff, it's just as green as can be. Those bales then get chopped into this gigantic mound of alfalfa, which makes it easier to put this stuff in the feeder and disperse it amongst the herds.
The first job every day is to make sure all the sheep have feed. So in the summertime, that's easy because the grass grows on its own. But in the wintertime, that can be hard. Sheep that are eating hay need to be fed hay every day. This winter was a tough one. A lot of times we were out with snow plows plowing the roads so we could access some of these places where the sheep were. And even in some cases, plowing spots for the sheep to eat. Just, whatever needs to be done is what we do.
While younger brother Weston proves that on the shearing floor, John's up in the mountain noticing something isn't quite right. I would have thought that those were just little mounds of dirt over there, but you said it's a whole band of sheep.
Yeah, there's another band over there. You can see them along that ridge. And they're supposed to be in the other field over there.
Sounds to me like a new adventure. Moving large herds of sheep takes a lot of patience. These are a slow-moving animal, and each herd have a hierarchy. So until the leaders figure out what direction they're supposed to go in,
Wait till the leaders get through.
everybody else will wait for them. We want to be slow, we want to be methodical, and we want to keep the stress level super low. Something that I've noticed the Helles are really good about.
99% of the time our sheep are out on open range taking care of themselves. And we're in the background making sure that they have the opportunity to be protected from predators and have good clean food and water and shelter when they need it. Anytime the sheep are coming into our corrals, we want to make it as pleasant as possible. And the sheep start trusting us, and they feel a lot better and more comfortable if you're always conscious of making sure that you're thinking of the animal and their welfare whenever we're working them.
So our sheep herders are actually all from Peru. There's a program where they get an H-2A visa. They're great guys, come from a country where they have sheep and they have llamas and alpacas, and they raise those kind of in family communities in the high mountains of Peru. And it's just a perfect fit because they have experience already. I mean, we've got one guy that's been with us for 23 years now.
Wow. So
And-
you basically grew up with him.
Absolutely, yeah. This is his profession. He's a professional sheep herder, and he does a great job. He's the best guy that we've got. His sheep are always the happiest, the healthiest. His dogs are always the happiest and healthiest, so he's just like got it mastered.
While they're out watching after their sheep, they're living in little wagons like this one right here. They call these things shepherd's wagons, and they move with the herd. So when they move up to the mountains, they drag these things with them, and when they come back down closer to the farm for the winter, they move them back down.
The classic Montana outdoorsman is a rancher.
There's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing. Our bodies are designed to be able to handle different climates, and especially if you put wool on them, we enhance our body's ability to function in different temperatures. Cut the air conditioning back a little bit, save on energy, turn the heat bill down a little bit, get outside. We're here for a short period of time. The land will be here. We're gifted the opportunity to take this land, make a product out of it, and steward it and take care of it, be conscious of our effect on the land, and we take that really seriously here. We're getting to be known around the country as having a very good clip. And then we found out we've got the wools that have the best stretch in the world. Our wools are characteristic of having a super good crimp. And that crimp is the spring in the wool, which makes a very stretchy, springy yarn that actually is bulkier, but not heavier. Australia and New Zealand wools, they had to add spandex to get the same effect that we're getting just naturally. I got out, and a guy by the name of Rob Bernthal, he always had a dream of starting a brand of a wool product line that was completely source verified from the sheep all the way to the shelf. I ski in the winter, and I go to the ski hill, I'll buy you a ski lift ticket, and we can ski and visit about it.
The second half of Duckworth Shear and Shred takes place right here at Maverick Mountain. It's on this very ski lift that the idea of Duckworth was created. After a full day on the slopes, the best way to rejuvenate those sore muscles are the local hot springs. And you better believe that the whole gang's showing up for it. During my time here, Duckworth has proven to be a complex family who's not afraid to have fun. And with an attitude like that, you can't help but join in.
This is definitely hazing. Oh my word. It's okay, I'm not freaking out. I'm not. Oh.
I had no idea what to expect, but they brought us into their family, and it turns out they're just a bunch of people who really love. Although Darian and I certainly have enjoyed our stay here in Montana, the snow today means I'm definitely looking forward to going south for some thaw. This whole trip has been a life-changing experience. My first opportunity to see thousands of sheep in one area, and it was right here in the United States. But that's not where we're going to end our journey, looking for fiber and how it connects into small communities. If you liked this video, go ahead and subscribe. Maybe we'll see you somewhere else in the world.